Kevin?
Hold on.
Oh,
You
we're
ready?
not ready.
1,
Oh.
2, 3.
We are back, but different. Kevin, where are we today?
We are coming live and direct from TeaLee's Cafe and Bookshop.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Yeah.
And we are so happy to be here live. We got an audience. Audience, make some noise for it. Woo! Yeah, there we go. There we go. And we are so happy to have our guest here today, Dr. Sims. Dr. Sims, welcome to the Exit Interview.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and excited to have this conversation that I think is so critical. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. Super excited. I met Dr. Sims some time ago. We were trying to remember what year it was, but at least 10 years ago?
Probably. I don't know. You know, when you vibe with people, you forget beginnings and endings.
Yeah, I love that. We vibe. So yeah, it's been, I know Louis was not around, so, and so definitely kept in contact. Dr. Sims is busy out here in these streets.
He's doing the thing.
Oh, 100%. I've had meetings with him where he's in the car headed to somewhere out of state, like several meetings where he's like, go ahead and start talking. I might lose you, but I'll come back. So he's definitely busy. So we're so excited that you had time to come and connect with us because you are a busy man.
Yeah, my schedule's quite disrespectful.
That's a good way of putting it. That's a good way of putting it.
It's quite disrespectful.
Disrespectful. Yeah, no, for real. So I guess we'll just jump into it because he has other things to do.
As he said, he has a disrespectful schedule.
He has a disrespectful schedule. He does not care, right?
It does not care.
No, it does not care. And so we're going to start off the way we always start off is tell us your story. How did you get into education?
You know, I got into education out of the military. I've always had kind of this natural orientation to teaching. When I was in college, I was tutoring other freshmen. I was tutoring seniors, and I always had the ability to kind of get the information to someone in a way that they understood it. And when I got out of the military, I started teaching. Right, I started teaching, went down to Mobile, Alabama, and started teaching high school anatomy, physiology, biology, and chemistry. And fell in love with it. My first year teaching, I was voted Teacher of the Year.
Right.
There you go.
That's awesome. Wait a minute. Wait, he said my first year teaching.
First year teaching, and it was Teacher of the Year as voted, like in the school.
Yeah,
I was brand new.
That's big.
It was a huge
thing. Yeah.
And I think what made it so special to me that it was voted by the students.
Sure.
So it was voted by those who we were impacting, so it wasn't anything political about it. And so I took that, and I still see that as one of my biggest accomplishments. Of all the things I think I've done, I think that's probably one of the biggest ones. First, out the gate. And so I moved from teaching and became a master lead teacher. Then I went down to Mosport, Mississippi, and did director of curriculum and instruction. And then I went to KIP and became a principal in New Orleans. And then I got this, this big idea that KIP, and then I became a principal of all-boys school in Denver, in New Orleans. And then I got this big idea that I could do this better. And I was so frustrated with the educators who I was, being surrounded with. They weren't in it for the right reasons. There was a bunch of politics going on. All the kids in the school looked like me. They were suffering, and I felt like we were just in this rat race. And I got the idea of starting a charter school, and I left New Orleans and came to Denver and opened Denver's first all-boys charter school, and I've opened 2 more since.
Well, hold on. We gotta back up a little bit.
Nah, man.
Because that is, first of all, give us some times, like 2 years here, 3 years here, 5 years here. Tell us some of those pieces, and then catch us up to how you got to Denver.
Yeah, so I was 7 years in Alabama, 2 years in Mississippi, 2.5 years in New Orleans, and then I got to Denver after that. I went to 2010, 2011 charter school conference, met now Mayor Mike Johnston. He was Senator Mike Johnston at the time, Peter Groff as well, and I just went over to them and said, hey, I got this great idea about opening this all-boys school. I had my connection to Denver is I have an aunt that lives here.
Okay.
And my aunt was saying, hey, look, I know you want to open your own school. There's a lot of things going on in the far northeast. This one they were closing down Montbello, and it was hot. It was hot in Montbello. It was like politically hot. And she said, yeah, come, check it out. They're being real friendly to charter schools. They're closing some schools down, so you may have an opportunity. And so when the charter school conference came, I found Mike Johnston, I found Peter Grove. They were sitting together. I went over and pitched the idea, said I got this great idea of opening this all-boys school, grades 6 through 12, with a focus on international studies. IB for all the kids. And they said, that sounds really, really good. There's a guy I want to connect you with. His name is Mike Hancock. He's a city councilman right now, but I guarantee you he's probably going to be the next mayor of Denver.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So back in the days when Southwest flights were like $89, I was flying back and forth from New Orleans to Denver like frequently, 2 or 3 times a month, meeting with Mike. And then he said, I'm going to introduce you to Landry Taylor. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. And so all the people who I needed to connect with initially, I connected with.
Sure.
And I started to build this coalition here in Denver in 2011. 2011, DPS board unanimously approved us to open up. And so, unfortunately, that school closed, right? DPS politics. But unfortunately, the school closed, and I was able to. The foundation kind of grew out of that. It was the Cinderella Foundation was to originally serve as kind of the parent organization for the Cinderella Academies.
Yeah.
I wanted to open 10 schools, and after the first year in the far northeast, we did a really, really good job. We were almost recognized by DPS as having some of the highest growth scores, on the TCAP at that time, and we did really well. And so I got ahead of myself. I started to go to Atlanta. Started to focus. This is actually the first time I'm telling this story public.
That's why our podcast is important.
This is the first time I'm telling this story public, man.
Yeah, thank you.
And so yeah, I was going back and forth to Atlanta, trying to get the school open in Atlanta, and then just really lost sight of what was happening here. I overestimated kind of the capacity of the board and my staff here, and it just things started to happen.
Yeah.
And people started to do things that wasn't in alignment with what the model was, and so I walked away, and then school closed. But I found out like by a phone call that the school's getting ready to close down. Yeah. So I wasn't even part of it. I had stepped back to open to do the foundation, and so that school closed, and then there was a lot of pain and hurt that was associated with it. I wanted to quit and move, but God wouldn't let me. Like it's who I am.
Yeah.
The hurt was just manifesting itself in that way, and then I started to just think about the best things that the school did, and started to create programming for the foundation, and that was almost 10 years ago. And now we are, 14,000 boys later.
Wait, hold that story. You jumping ahead. This is why when we have people, we tell them the questions ahead of time. They always jump ahead of us here.
I forgot the questions already.
You always say that, right?
I do. I have.
You have any questions? Any thoughts, Kevin?
It's just part of the story.
I mean, I just, if you could, can you tell us about? And I know you said it's DPS politics, and maybe not everybody is DPS related listening to the podcast, but can you talk about what you mean by some of that DPS politics and the closing of the school? Because I think we've seen this a lot in this city where people have started really important schools that are doing really great stuff, and are speaking on behalf of myself. I've noticed that the Denver Public Schools don't always support these schools.
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy relationship. I mean, DPS does some things right, but in this case, I think we were so unique they didn't know how to treat us. That we were the only boys' school, and I mean, there were times when the Office of Accountability and Innovation would come out to the school and to do site visits and try to evaluate us, and they would say, "There's really no school for us to compare you to, but you're doing this wrong."
There's no one to compare you to, but you're not doing it right.
No, that's right. Everybody can tell you how to do it. Nobody's done it. So it was that kind of relationship. It was a struggle back and forth. When I say DPS politics, there were people who were vocal about how that school should not have existed.
Interesting.
This school should have never gotten approved. So I knew from the beginning that we didn't have the kind of support that we needed. So we had to prove our model, and we did. We proved our model. But again, we had all boys. We had the boys that other schools thought were uneducable. They kicked them out. We had kids coming out of the juvenile system, and we had tremendous growth. Kids were coming off of IEPs. We had like a 22% sped rate. The district, I think, around 12 or 14 at the time. We were able to move kids off of IEPs because the environment that we created, the peer mentoring that we supported, the peer mentoring that was going on, and more importantly, I was training our staff and our teachers on how to work with young men.
Yeah.
There's a difference on how to work with young men and how to and how to create learning experiences that are that lend itself to the strengths of boys. And so we did great, but we couldn't navigate the politics for long.
Can I ask, when you said that people really pushed against you even starting in school, what were some of the comments that people were saying, or the reasons why they believe that the school shouldn't exist?
I'll never forget, part of the approval process is you had to have multiple committees to look at your charter application and kind of say, yes, this should go forward, and no, it shouldn't go forward. And I never forget, I was in one of those meetings with my team at the time, and the guy looked at me who was leading the team, and he said, I noticed that this school has an IB for all concept. I said, yes. He said, well, do you know what IB is? I said, yes, I wrote the application. Yes, I've been an IB coordinator. Yeah, I know exactly what it is. Oh, then you know it's tough that every kid cannot do this.
Oh,
and the school and the kids that you're trying to serve, are you sure that they can do this? It's a
Can we just pause for a second on that?
Pause for the cause.
Pause for the cause.
Pause for the loss.
Yeah, for the loss.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I want to pause for, because I'm pretty sure even if that particular person is no longer in a district somewhere, that person is duplicated all over the place.
It was a community person. They weren't even tied to the school district.
Interesting.
This is one of those community panels.
Wow.
They give it to the community. They give it to the officials in the school system.
Yeah.
And this was in that community.
Interesting. So community members not believe in their own community.
Well,
Oh wow. Go ahead, continue, please.
So I said, I looked at him and I said to myself, I said, this is probably going to get the application denied. I'm about to speak my mind. And I said, sir, I said, do you believe in the IB program? He said, yes, I absolutely do. I think it's one of the best ways to engage kids in learning. I said, I do too. I said, if we believe that this is the best way to engage kids in learning, then why shouldn't all kids have it?
Yes.
Does this become a teacher capacity problem and an adult problem, or are we still pointing fingers at the kids? And just because these boys that we're looking to serve are boys of color, does that exaggerate your feelings about it?
Mm-hmm.
Is that why you asked me that question? I said, I think it's a civil rights issue, and that we should teach all kids in the way that we think is the best way for kids to engage in learning and become productive citizens. So absolutely, I know what IB is, and I know exactly what I'm doing with the school. I thought we were done, but we got approved. I thought we were done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm new to the city, didn't have any allies here, so but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's interesting, because right now in the district, there's a push for advanced classes for all students.
Sure.
Right? So you were on the cutting edge of where we are now today to say that all kids deserve access to advanced classes, to IB classes, to rigorous education.
Yeah.
But it's always interesting the way it plays out. But you said They improved the school.
They improved the school. They improved the school. I think it was largely because, I mean, it's a great model, but I've seen great models not get approved because they didn't have the politics right, or didn't have the right people on the board.
Sure.
I think I just got the right, I got the first part right. Because they were, I mean, out the gate, I just felt like we were under attack. Out the gate. Out the gate. So that's what I meant by the politics. And what has, I think, affirmed that is that we've seen schools after me, after Simsfield Academy, close and get attacked, you know, in very similar ways. Who are serving very similar kiddos.
Yeah.
What were some of the criticisms? Like, because I know when they have to give justification, but what were some of the reasons why they said Simsfield had to close, or they were pulling their support for the
program? Well, I mean, again, I wasn't part of it when it closed. I was kind of on the periphery, but it was about enrollment. It was enrollment. It was the school didn't attract enough kids to pay the bills. But I mean, I think that was also a result of how the then board handled the transition and who came in. And, you know, Simsfield was my baby. It was a school that I created. I understood the why behind it. And when, you know, my board and I became at odds and I decided to step back, you know, I was like, you know, if the school was still so early that people believed more in me than they did the school. So they were still looking for the promises that I said that would happen. And when I stepped away, then there were some families who started to leave, but the people who were there I guess they didn't have the capacity to continue to tell the story in the way that I told the story.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right?
It makes total sense.
Yeah, leadership, people do move to a place, go to a particular job, show up in a certain way because of the leadership, right? And for the positive or the negative, it's because of leadership, right? So I 100% understand what you're saying about that. Yeah. So thinking about that, we hear your story and you're getting ready to transition, and we're kind of this question of like, what was the thing that pushed you out of traditional education? So knowing that the school had closed, you decided not to, sounds like, open another school, obviously here in Denver, but then you started to talk about the Simsfield Foundation. So before we kind of jump into like where you are now, tell us what was the I cannot open another school here? Was it just like DPS? Because you could have maybe tried for a different district, right? What was it that said, you know what, instead of going to a different district, we're just going to try a different model altogether?
I was hurt. I mean, I was still hurt, and you know, having opened 3 schools, opening one is a monumental task.
Sure.
Like that's heavy work. Not only are you thinking about the instructional framework and all those things and the model, but you have to get the politics right. You have to convince people to come alongside you and to support. You have to convince parents this is the best place to send their kids, and you can't do that kind of work hurt. You can't do that kind of work hurt. That's a sermon right there.
Yep, that is a sermon.
The rest of the podcast can be like that. You can't do heavy, meaningful work hurt. At least not well.
That's right.
It's probably why the exit of you even in it.
You know what? And that's exactly right. That's exactly why the exit interview exists, because folks have realized, right, you can't teach in the ways and show up in the ways and be a school psychologist in a way or an admin in a way that you really want to be if you're like bleeding.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when I healed, I thought about it. I went and talked to APS, just trying to really understand the process of maybe this happening again. But ultimately, I decided to open 2 more schools outside of Denver, one in Louisiana and one in Arkansas. And so when I started to heal, and even now, I look back and realize that one seed had to die for everything else to grow.
Okay.
Out of that experience with Simsfield Academy Denver, 2 more schools exist, a foundation exists that has footprint in 9 states, 14,000. I can go on and on, but it was that. And I think also I went through a little spiritual kind of journey myself. For that year, I was hurt. I didn't want to go out. I woke up and prayed and meditated every day, and I came across the story of David when he was in the cave of Adullam. I may be saying it wrong, but he went to the cave, and when he went to the cave, he surrounded himself with 300 other hurt men, and they spent time in the cave to heal. And when they healed, they went out and did great things.
Yeah.
I had to separate myself from the product.
Yeah.
The way I came up and the way I, was my life experiences. The only thing that allowed me to think that I had control over my life were my accomplishments. I grew up in a very tough way. Mom was on drugs, the whole nine. Dad wasn't around. Intentionally, there was violence in our home. There was drug selling. There was shooting. There was all kind of things going on. And the one place that I could find peace was in school and with my accomplishments. Those are the places I got affirmed. It was Miss Van Hoos. It was Miss Keese. It was Dr. Posey. Like, you remember those people who embrace you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when I knew there was more outside of my 4-block radius because I was being exposed by my teachers, I started to strive for more. And I'm getting emotional even talking about this right now. But yeah, anyway, I lost my thought.
Were you just talking about this year that you were just healing?
This year I was healing. So from that time on, from high school all the way into adulthood, I was wearing different masks in order to fit in different places when I was in the military. So I got to a point where I lost myself, but I was always achieving something, and people were always saying, you're doing great here, and getting awards there, and doing this and doing that. And so whenever that thing died, whenever the school died, I felt like I died. I felt like I lost my identity.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's a big part of it.
And that period that I went through taught me to detach myself from the thing. Mm-hmm. That I was worth something outside of the thing. And I think that gave me the energy and the healing to go on to do what I've done since that thing, which is 10 times more.
Yeah.
I wanna talk about maybe Kevin, maybe I'm sending you beings here because I want to sit in this idea of healing for a little bit.
Yep.
Because I find that there's a lot of Black educators who leave teaching and are not healing.
Yep.
Right? And then they go into nonprofit spaces, entrepreneurial spaces, and they're so wounded that they're on the defensive, and it just makes everything much harder for them.
Yeah.
Right? And for lots of reasons, they can't afford to just kind of take a break from the whatever the situation is. But so many of us are coming. We talk about racial battle fatigue here on the podcast. People who, and you didn't say it was about race, but people and Black educators who experience racial battle fatigue, they come out and they think, I need a month, or I'll think about this summer, or this next job will help me heal. And that is not the case, right? I was part of some of the work that I do outside this podcast is we have a Black Educator Wellness Cohort, and we had our retreat this last month, and one of the people who was in our cohort said it took her 7 months. 7 months before she felt like she came back to herself, of not working, of doing nothing. And that's a privilege for her to be able to not work. But there's so many of us who are just out here just so wounded and so exhausted and so frustrated, but have to keep showing up, right? And so we're not really back to ourselves when we go on to the next venture. So I'm glad to hear you talking about healing and this need to heal and how it really helped you to bloom into what you are now.
Yeah. I mean, and I took that seriously. I mean, even with Simmons Fellow Foundation right now, we do initiated an initiative called Self-Care Mondays.
Yeah. And
so every 4th Monday of the month, we engage in some sort of self-care activities. Of the 14 staff that I have, 12 of us are men of color. And what I do know is that dysregulated people can't help dysregulated people.
That's right. True.
And we are in schools and in communities working with young men who may be dysregulated, need support, SEL support. But what I know as a leader, as a Black man, that my my employees, my team members, my coaches are black and brown men who also didn't get the support that we're trying to give people.
Yeah.
Yep.
I noticed in even some of the interactions that their response and sometimes the way they react to the frustration that comes with working with dysregulated kids, that it wasn't really healthy. And so I took my own journey of healing and I said, you know what? They are out there mentoring and healing all of these young men that we work with. It is my job to do the same to them.
Yeah.
And so we engage in like acupuncture. We've had guys who work for me who just got their first pedicures,
Right.
massages.
Get those heels. Get those high heels out there.
Asia, I feel attacked.
I know.
I'm looking at you, Kevin. I'm looking. Yeah.
We do massages, book studies. We're reading Cry Like a Man right now. Next week, they're going to do a mindfulness coach, massage, ear acupuncture, many MI facials, and massages. So for the last 90 minutes of our day, every day next week, we're going to do that. Then we have team builders on the weekend sometime as well. But those book studies and the conversations that I have with them and the resources that I have around healing, I'm passing on to our guys. And we're having conversations, but they're having conversations about their lives and their health and their mental health that they've never had before, or in this way. So it helps them to become better coaches to the boys.
Sure.
You can understand how to re-regulate once you learn to re-regulate yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Hurt people, right?
Yep.
Well, heal people, heal people.
Yeah. Ooh, I love it.
Love that.
And so,
Yes,
and so, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I think that's so important, and I think in that bigger picture, the humanity, right, of that, you know, black men, we are people, black males of color, men of color, like we are people, right? And sometimes it's so removed from that. But thinking about your experiences, if you could go back and you could have the magic wand, you could talk to Dr. Marrero, you could talk to Susanna Cordova, who's now the head of All Education Colorado, talk to the unions, talk to educators. What things do you think can be done? Because one of the things that we're thinking about in the exit interview, and I know Asia has her perspective on this question always,
I do.
but what can be done to retain black educators, to maintain programs like your academy, to increase that? What do you think, if you could wave the magic wand, what would you do or tell them to do?
Yeah. Well, I think first we got to quit. We got to move from the disposition of tolerating each other. When you tolerate somebody, you already put a barrier up, right? It's that I'm going to get through this. You're not fully embracing them. You're tolerating them. And I feel like for so long in education systems across the country, black educators in particular are tolerated.
Yep.
Not included. Not really. There's the attempt to try to understand culture in a way that could be beneficial to education. It's a lot of lip service, but it's not a whole lot of action. We spend a whole lot of money covering up racism.
Yeah.
We get the new curriculum. We get the new this, right? We get the new bus route. We tear the school down. We build the school up. All those things. And it's just flat out racism in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Flat out racism. And we got to call it what it is. And so if DPS or APS or any school system across the country is looking to retain black educators, you have to first understand, you have to agree with yourself that they're necessary. That brilliance comes from diversity and inclusion. That black people were really part of the fabric of creating this country. And that if we were brilliant enough to do that, if we're brilliant enough to be involved in education. You have to invest in black educators' development.
Yep.
And first, and the most important thing is that when we say that we are hurt or been microaggressed against, you gotta believe us.
Period.
Yep.
Yes, period.
You gotta believe us.
I think that's really important, that they accept our story, our experience, because I think a lot of times they don't.
Yeah.
They think it's just us, or it's just a one-off, Or but
A lot of race lighting going on.
over and over again. Say that again. Say that
There's
again.
a lot of race lighting
Yes.
going on.
Race lighting, yeah.
Race lighting.
Yeah, a lot of race lighting going on.
Yeah,
So-
we are at, I just looked this stat up, that I guess at the end of 2022, there were 888 black teachers in the state of Colorado. That's just enough to maybe fill an elementary school, right? When I was going through my dissertation research process, the district that I left at the time had 86 black educators. By the end of my dissertation process, when I was double checking all of my information, they were like 46.
Wow.
And it only been like 2 years. I didn't take that long to get my dissertation done, right? And so, though it felt like it. So, we're not being replaced by black educators. We talked about this. Folks love to fly out, and we're in Colorado, fly out to HBCUs, set up a whole table and convince people from Atlanta, from New Orleans, from Detroit, from all these, Chicago, thank you. But you need to come out here. We have this, this, and this, and this. And we'll pay stipends. Branta Lockett, who was on our podcast a while back,
Yep.
she was on the East Coast. They pay for her to move her stuff. They pay for her apartment, some of the first and last, all the things. And she wasn't there more than 3 years.
Yeah.
Right? And we know, and I cannot remember who told me this. I want to say it's Stacy, but I don't know if it's true, that like most of the educators that we have in Colorado who are black are from here. So like, why would we spend money on the folks already here? Right? To fly 2 people from HR in a school district out somewhere, put them in a hotel for 2-3 nights, feed them all the things. How many programs, how many strategies, how many things can we do to invest in black educators with that exact same money?
Yeah.
Right around here.
Right here.
Not go all, but not go across the country.
Yeah, and it's always been for me about retention, because recruitment to me, people love it because it's sexy, like, oh, these fresh young, but if there's something to be said about the people who have been here 30, 40, not 40, that's a bit much, but 10, 15 years, who know the schools, who know the kids, the political climate, and who are showing up every day. So why don't they get the same amount of love and respect?
Investment,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the truth.
So next question is, you've been talking about it, but it's my favorite question.
Well, let me say this real quick.
Okay.
It's on my mind.
Yes, please.
Around this question of what can school systems do to retain black educators or educators in color in general. Education is a social industry that adopts social ills. And our country is sick right now.
Yep.
And this country has been sick for a long time as it relates to how do we treat, black folk.
Yeah.
And I don't know that the improving of retention and recruitment of black educators is going to improve without the country's improving their perception about black people, their wealth, the worth of black people. Some would tell you that we lost our worth when slavery was abolished. Oh yeah. I did some DEI workshops around the country, and there was this one girl who asked me, she said, why do you think that black people have it so bad? Like, what do you think, why do you think black people have it so bad in the United States? I said, well, I think that one thing is we were the only group of folks that wasn't invited or welcomed to America. We didn't come in with Lady Liberty waving at us. We came in at ships and couldn't see Lady Liberty.
That's right.
We came in at the bottom of the boat.
Yeah.
And so that was a very specific reason that we were brought here. And when that reason was lost, we lost our value.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still some of that going on right now. Why educate a kid who I don't see as valuable?
That's valuable.
Yeah.
Don't play with me. I've been doing this podcast all day.
Listen, we can do part 2.
Folks don't really hear me talk like this unless they in my workshops.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
The reason why I like that question, Kevin said this is Asia's favorite question, is because I don't believe that we can retain black educators because we don't want to. And I shouldn't say we, because I'm out here free. Right? I'm free. So,
Give us free.
Give us free, yeah. And so, and I'm always like that. Because like you said, it's not, education system is not a silo. It's tied to health, it is tied to housing, it is tied to all these other things. And until we work on all these things simultaneously, we can just forget it, right? That's the reality of it. That's what I've always believed. I would hope to be wrong, but I have not been wrong yet. Yeah.
But I mean, that's how you manage your emotions around it, because you realize what the real problem is. Everything else is just, symptoms and manifestations. Like, you know what the real issue is, and so in order for you to be impactful and effective in what you're trying to do, in the little pebble you're trying to throw in this, you have to do it from a healed position. It doesn't mean that everything is right, but the healing is that I understand why this is happening, and I'm going to move in a way that allows me to navigate why this is happening. I'm not, am I upset that this is happening? Absolutely. But is it going to stop me from doing what I'm doing? No, because I'm in a healed place that allow me to continue to be effective and focus on the main thing. I keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm not going to argue with you about it, but okay, if that's your position, that's fine. I'm moving ahead.
Yeah.
I think that's what we do as Black people. That we've learned. That's one of our
Sure.
strategies.
Yeah. Still love you.
Yep.
I'm just going on.
I'm just good week.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, you've been hinting about it. You've been talking about it this whole podcast. So what are you doing now?
Nothing.
Yeah, okay. With the disrespectful schedule.
I'm doing everything and nothing.
Everything and nothing.
Like John Legend said. Yeah. Everything and nothing. Well, currently, I'm the CEO and founder of the Sims Fielder Foundation. We've been around for almost 10 years. It's crazy to think about that. I remember when I, loaned the foundation its first $30,000, and now we're pretty good. Over the last 9.5 years, we've, impacted, like I said, greater than 14,000 young men. We've worked with, through workshops and coaching, a little north of 6,000 youth service professionals who work with this population. So we're talking teachers, counselors, social workers, law enforcement, school resource officers, you name it. If they are working with young men and boys of color, we have the capacity to support and work with them through workshops and those kind of things. We're based here in Denver, but we have footprints in 9 other states and a variety of programs, to include a recent expansion to Los Angeles. So we're working in like 7 or 8 schools in Los Angeles, in the Compton area, South Central, Watts, like in the areas where we think we should be. So we have programming that focuses around, social-emotional skills, social-emotional growth, mental behavior wellness, financial literacy, color. So we have great partnerships with a variety of industries: aviation, oil and gas, STEM, jewelry, food, food and beverage, those kind of industries. We have mentoring programs in person, online, remote. Over the last 9.5 years, our programs have resulted in a greater than 60% reduction in suspensions, a greater than 60% reduction in negative discipline incidents that have to do with violence, and a greater than 60% reduction in truancies for the young men who have gone through our program. So our program is highly, highly successful. This past year, we were in about 23 schools in the Denver metro area. This year, we're projected to be in about 33. We're only limited by how quick I can hire. So we have programs that run on the weekend. We have a diversion program now, so trying to keep young men and boys of color out of jail. We have 2 tracks in that program. If you're justice referred, or if you're just a parent that said, oh my God, you need some help before you get to that side program. And we're getting ready to launch a Male Educators of Color Fellowship to recruit, retain, and sustain male educators of color within their first 3 years. We're looking to do 20 fellows in this first cohort. We're already at 15, and I feel confident that we're gonna get that 5. And we have workshops that we do, hardwired by nature, where we work with educators on creating learning experiences and programming that's considered of both culture and gender. Working with boys of color workshop series. We have workshops for parents called Connecting with Your Sons. To where we help parents to really understand what boys can and can't do at different age bands, and it's really helped them to become better advocates for their young men, both in life as well as in school. So yeah, I mean, you know, we're not doing too much at all.
We're working to solve these problems.
That's it. And the latest thing is, you know, before Mayor Hancock left, he transferred Denver's My Brother Keeper program to the Sims Felder Foundation.
Right.
So now we are the backbone organization for My Brother's Keeper for Denver that's charged with creating a collective action plan to support young men and boys of color from cradle to college to career.
Love it.
So this puts us in the systems change, policy change space, which is where I want to be, and I knew that we would be there. We're still doing programming, and we're doing all the great things that we've done over the last 9.5 years. But this time, you know, the truth is as great of the work that we've been doing, it's been reactive work.
Sure.
We're reacting to the damage that schools and communities are doing to young men and boys of color. MBK gives us the platform to be involved with the proactive work, to be at the table, to tell the story, and to create the policy that will slow down the damage that's being done. So we're super, super proud of that, and looking to, you know, really engage in that work.
That's a
It's
lot.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a lot, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm so glad you were able to meet with us. I know the scheduling and everything can be, again, disrespectful, but
Yeah.
so glad to hear that. Can I back you up a little bit?
Yeah.
Can you kind of dive more into your recruitment and retention programs that you're rolling out?
Yeah.
Talk more about that.
Yeah, so nationally, male educators of color are less than 5%, right? And when you look at the research that shows the positive outcomes for young men and boys of color when they have another man in front of them in the classroom, right? Discipline goes down, grades go up, social interactions get better, mentorship happens, social supports increase. And if that's true, then we're leaving a lot of progress and capital on the table,
Yep.
right? And so the goal is for Colorado to recruit, sustain, and support male educators of color within the first 3 years. And the reason why the first 3 years are important because that's when the transition happens. Like that's when they're going to leave, or they're going to stay, or they're going to stay.
Yeah.
And so because our mission is to improve the life outcomes of young men and boys of color, and we know that having that in the classroom is one of the mechanisms for improvement, then why not be in a position, why not create sort of a platform to be able to do that? And so, you know, these fellows are going to go through a year-long experience with us. We just finished creating like all the scope and sequence and the programming, and what I'm so proud of is that the first 2 days, which we call our intensive, is going to focus on them.
Yes.
It's going to focus on storming and norming the them,
That's
SEL.
right. That's right.
And
No icebreakers? No random?
none of that.
Right?
None of
None of that?
None of that.
Okay.
We're going to take them through what I call Scrooge moments. I'm going to take them back through their lives to show them how they picked up things that caused them to be in their own way.
Yep.
Because sometimes it's not always the man. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not always the man. Sometimes it's toxic definitions of masculinity that causes us to not succeed professionally, and because we listen to Uncle Leroy, right? And so I'm going to walk them through moments I call Scrooge moments. Now, we did a pilot of this in Indianapolis last year, and we had 15 guys who were part of the pilot in Indianapolis. And when I tell you that we walked through Scrooge moments and there were tears and there were revelations and people really understood why they reacted the way they react and how they show up at work has been wrong, it just validated, it gave me so much data that we're moving in the right direction. And so before we started talking about instructional frameworks and affinity groups and how do we create classrooms that are anti-racist, blah, 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 like you got to get right. You got to recognize, you have to recognize what you contribute to it, because what you see is heavy or what you see is noisy out there may not truly be noisy. It could be just you. You haven't healed from when your dad didn't show up, or you didn't heal from when you saw your mom doing this, or the neglect of being left on the stoop, and you got to deal with that. In our community for so long, mental health and support and counseling has been taboo, or not even just they don't even have access to it. And so you never had that healing moment, but now you're a teacher trying to heal and regulate kids. Now, so first we're going to help you storm and norm within yourself, and then we're breaking it down by quarters. So once a month we'll meet online on Zoom, but every quarter we'll meet in person. And we're bringing in national experts to work with them. So we got Dr. Pedro Noguero, who's already committed. We got Dr. Luke Wood, who was just took over the presidency of Sacramento State. We're looking at Dr. Sean Harper, and we also have some local talent that we're going to bring in as well for those quarterly, for those quarterly meetings. So our goal this year is to take 20. I forgot about this. The capstone project for the cohort is to create a campaign to convince young men and boys of color in middle school and in high school that teaching is worth it.
Ooh, I love that.
See, this is how you prime the pipeline.
That's right.
Yeah.
It won't be enough for me to send out 15 to 20 fellows a year and maintain the system. We need to have 15 to 20,000
Yep.
who look at education different, who are black and brown boys,
Yep.
to say, I can't wait to become a teacher.
That's right. That's right.
So they're going to put together a campaign to be able to go into high schools to convince them, and that's going to be their capstone project. And to your point, I don't know if you remember this, that we talked about, you reached out to me, you said, well, what about the families? Remember that?
Yeah.
She said, what about the families of the educators? If they're not happy, the educators not going to be happy. So what we put in here is that every month, the fellows themselves are going to have to come up with some sort of bonding and community building activity that includes the wives, parents, partners of everyone who's in the fellowship.
Yes.
So if you're moving here, if our goal is to get you to move here from Atlanta and from Houston and from New Orleans, and you get here and you struggle to find your community, right?
You're going back home.
You got a year right now
Yeah.
to build community with 19 other fellows and their partners, if they have partners. So they're going to take turns hosting these community building sessions in order to build community over entire years. So yeah, and that helps with the retention.
Let me pause. I love that, because I was just talking about this idea of we don't just get pushed out of education by systems, by all the things. We also get pulled up by our family members.
Absolutely.
If you come home every night, such and such, and your spouse, your whoever, like, well, I got a job over here, I can help you find it.
Yeah.
And they're pulling, as the system is pushing our teachers out. Our families are tired of hearing us talk about all the harm, and they're trying to figure out how to get us to someplace else.
Yep.
We can downsize our house, and we can do this. I can get an extra job. So that's the thing. We've interviewed folks, RVN, shout out to RVN
Shout out
Harper.
to RVN Harper.
Yes, that's right. You know, RVN,
She
shout out.
continues to work with us.
Yeah, RVN,
Yeah.
super dope. And when
Such a
she
great
was
soul.
teaching, she fantastic. She was she went part-time, right? Her husband they were like, okay, let's figure it out. And so he was an entrepreneur and went back into the workplace so that she can go part-time, so that she can do some of the healing that she needed to do. So families are figuring out how to help us leave teaching if that need be. And when we don't think about the family that surrounds the educator, we make a mistake. It's not 800, actually it's not 888 black teachers. It is 888 black families.
Yeah.
Right? That are impacted in all the ways. So when they are pushed out of schools, when they're in their car crying before they go to work,
Or playing gospel music before they go anywhere. Having a whole Kirk Franklin session.
Listen to me. Israel Houghton, my throat was dry. So listen. Yeah, and so the thing is, we're not able to show up in those ways, and our families see us suffering, and they love us and want better for us, right? And so we have to think about how are we going to show up for family, the educator and their families. I love that.
Well, thanks for bringing it to my mind. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. I was so focused on healing the guys and getting them there, and you were like, what about this family aspect? And I was like, you were so right.
Yeah.
You're right. You ain't happy at home. No papers getting graded. That's it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, beautiful. So before we started the podcast today, I told Dr. Sims, I said, here are the 5 questions. And the last question is, what's bringing you joy these days? He's like, that's the hardest one. But he figured something out. So, Dr. Sims, what's been bringing you joy these days?
Seeing the growth of the foundation. it's not just growth geographically, financially, personnel wise, the growth in the impact. We just went through our data and realized that of the 23 schools we were in last year, we had double-digit gains in all the schools.
Wow.
All the schools. We have boys who come in the programs kicking and screaming and saying, "I don't want to leave. Can I come back and be a part of it?" Which is what prompted me to create year-round programming. So we can engage these young men for an entire year, whether it's career exposure, financial literacy, social emotional skill development, mentoring, summer school. Like we run 2 summer camps every year, one in Park Hill and one in Montbello for boys. Elementary in Park Hill, middle school in Montbello. So yeah, I mean I think I had to reflect on that because that was the hardest question for me because I don't take time, and people who know me will agree with this. I don't take time to sit back and think about the success or think about like the joy in it. It's because I see the work. And it's like I never not see the work. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think at some point I'll look back at it, but I never not see the work. And for me, once you've accomplished one thing or accomplished one goal, there's always another one. There's always another one. If that wasn't true, we wouldn't be still having these same kinds of conversations, 200 years later.
Yeah.
So that's what's bringing me joy, is actually seeing it work and the proof of concept of working and boys getting healed and families, getting resources and finding solutions. Like that's what, and it's to a point to where I can step back and it runs itself.
Slow down now. Wait a minute. We need your leadership. Hold on now.
Previewing something.
Right.
Preview.
Well, the next episode, right?
Yeah, next episode he left. But yeah, that's it. I mean, the organization is a very, very healthy place. The right people have the right people on the bus in the right seats.
Yes.
And they are so receptive. They're asking the right questions. They are reflecting on the right things, and they're so open to kind of my guidance and leadership. I love it. I love it. I really do.
So if our listeners want to get involved with the Sims Viola Foundation, what do they need to do? If our students want to get involved,
Yeah.
we got adult black educators want to get involved, educators of color, what do they need to do?
Reach out to us. I mean, we have a variety of ways to get in contact with us. Our website, obviously, sffoundation.org. We have a healthy social media presence. So respond to any one of our newsletters or posts that go out. I mean, if you want to email us, it's info@sffoundation.org, and we'll respond.
All right. Well, Dr. Sims, thank you.
Thank you.
A pleasure. You dropped jewels.
For sure. Oh, for sure.
All sorts throughout this.
I appreciate it.
We appreciate you.
I think I appreciate the platform. I like the platform. I like the idea. I think it's necessary. So thanks for allowing me to be the first live one. Wow.
Yeah, first live.
I got a career in radio. That's it.
There you go.
All right.
So, well, that wraps up our episode of the Exit Interview, a podcast for Black educators. Am I forgetting anything, Kevin? You give me the look.
You're not forgetting anything.
Okay, good. Well, we'll see you out here. If you are a former Black educator across the state, make sure that you reach out to us if you are interested in sharing your story on our podcast. You can reach us at exitinterviewpodcast.com or info@exitinterviewpodcast.com. And we have one more speaker, right? Who wants to come up and share? Come on up.
My intuition is pretty good. So this time I said, let them introduce themselves. And it worked out. So first of all, thank you. We were baptized by technology.
That's right. That's right.
But I'm hoping you will continue to join us. these conversations are so worthy. This was great, and I'm not gonna let them get away with this being a one-off. We need to do something bigger sooner because the topic is so important. And I am a product of Denver Public Schools, and I can't tell you all the questions that kept running through my head as you all were talking. The great part, if you're not here, you missed it because we're going to hold them captive for a few minutes. Thank you on behalf of TeaLee's Tea House and Bookstore, and you can expect more of this from us. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Love it, love it.
All right, that is a wrap.
That's a wrap.